Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's BookTrib live chat. We are so excited to have you with us today, especially because we have an incredible author joining us in just a few moments. But before I get to that, I am going to let you know about why these live chats are all possible. Our book lovers community, BookTrib.com, we have awesome stuff going on, all related to books, which we love, of course, like our live author chats, blog tours, giveaways. Oh, our giveaways. We are just dying to give you guys books. Right now we have The Fiery Cross by Diana Gabaldon, Wilson by A. Scott Berg, and many more. But you have to be a BookTrib member to win these books. So go sign up. It's free, it's easy, and like I said, we are dying to give away these books. Also, I am going to be your host and moderator for today, BookTrib Babe. You could follow me there on Twitter to get all the updates going on BookTrib, and follow BookTrib too. We love tweeting and retweeting, so go ahead and follow us. But not now. Don't leave the chat. And now to the whole reason we are here, Mr. Bond. Mike Bond, that is. How often do you think he gets that? But this Bond is better in the sense that he is actually saving the world. Excuse my piece of paper right here, but there is no way I was going to memorize all the incredible things that he has done. And I'm going to name a few for you, but I'm probably not even scratching the surface. So listen to this, because you're going to want to climb the Appalachian Mountains and probably save some pandas while you're at it. First off, Mike has been called the master of the existential thriller by the BBC and one of the 21st century's most exciting authors by the Washington Times. He is, of course, a best-selling novelist, an environmental activist, advisor to U.S. and foreign governments. He's an international energy expert, war and human rights correspondent, and an award-winning poet. He has lived and worked in many remote, dangerous parts of the world, including 30 countries in 6 continents. Get ready, because I'm not even close to done. He has been a Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate from Montana, was project manager of several wild and scenic river and national wildlife refugee master plans, worked to protect the Allagash Wilderness Waterway in Maine, helped create Montana's Lee Metcalf Wilderness and California's Golden Gate National Recreation Area. He's fought elephant poaching in Africa. He managed the NASA and AIA project to design part of the orbiting space station. Are you hearing all of this? And he helped write the Colorado Wolf Management Plan. He's also, that's not enough for you, he's also a former anchor for the PBS new program European Journal. And he was also the Paris energy correspondent for the Financial Times. I actually have one more thing for you. One of the most awesome things that Bond has done, he has hiked more than 50,000 miles. That is twice the circumference of the Earth. If I walk 1 mile at the gym, I think that is an accomplishment. Okay? And he has done this in North and South America, New Zealand, Mongolia, Russia, Africa, Spain, and France. Oh, I'm tired just reading all of that. And you can ask him about it as soon as I invite him on, very shortly. But of course, if you stick around to the very end, you could win a copy of Mike's book, Saving Paradise, his latest thriller. It is fiction, but of course you can tell he has a lot of real-life experiences that go into this. So without any further ado, I am going to invite him on camera, and you can ask him all the questions you want, and be sure to stick around if you want to win the book. I see he's waiting for us.
Monica, how are you? And hello everyone out there.
I think he's talking to me. Sorry, hold on, let me put my headphones in. What'd you say?
I just said it's great to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry, I can't hear him. Yeah, just put him on. I can't hear you, Mike. I'm so sorry. We can talk about it later. I'm going to put you on. We have a few questions coming in, so you take the floor.
Well, Catherine said something about complaining for, now wait a minute, we've gone off camera here. I'm not quite sure why. How I got involved in managing the project. I'm not sure which project, Savvy Bookworm, I'm not sure which project you're talking about. As far as Wild and Scenic Rivers, I got involved because I was the project manager for a environmental planning firm. I'm not sure if that's the answer I'm not sure if you can hear me. For some reason, we seem to have a sound out. Can you hear me? Knowing what I know now, Tiny Book Monkey has asked, what advice would I give? Uh, Knowing what I know now with regard to the human being, I would probably give the same advice as Camus, which is that each individual has to forge her or his own way based upon trusting one's own morality rather than the morality of the masses, and that one has to indeed uh, one has to look at each situation and make judgments not swayed by that of the majority, because the majority, as Mark Twain said, is usually wrong. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Well, what event I've just been asked has caused me to be interested in the environment. Uh, I've been interested in the environment all my life. When I was very young, I could walk out the back door and enter a paradise of Middle Eastern forest, nearly wild forest that went on for miles. When I was 4 years old, I was out there in the woods climbing hills and getting completely lost and getting stuck out there at night. And there were bears and deer and raccoons and water moccasins and everything else out there. And it was still the wildlands. And I'm talking about a place that was 20 miles from Manhattan. And which I went back to see years ago, and it was impossible to even find the area where I had lived. The entire thing had been bulldozed miles and miles and miles, including a beautiful stream with a church in it, and miles of forest had all been bulldozed and made into a bedroom community of about 100,000 houses. So that was my first interest in the environment, and I basically always turned to the environment for the spiritual and emotional peace that's very difficult to find in the modern humanized world. Oh, someone just asked now, I'm having trouble. Rita Kuna has asked, my husband and I love to hike too. What has been your favorite? Oh my gosh, that's like saying of all the people you love, which one do you love the most? Uh, Oh my God, I love Mongolia. The Western Mountains of Mongolia. There's an area in Western Mongolia called the Altai, which is very easy to get to. Well, not very. Actually, it's devilishly difficult to get to, but it can be done. It can be done on a reasonable budget, and it's unbelievably wild and unbelievably high and beautiful. Certainly, the Himalayas, the I first was hiking in the Himalayas many years ago. In fact, often the first person of Western looks, if you wish, to end up in some of these valleys. And uh, that was paradise also. I would say the Andes is wonderful. Absolutely. New Zealand, of course, is absolute hikers paradise, because you can go, which is really fun, from inn to inn. So you hike 15, 20 miles, a nice quiet day, and then you have a marvelous three-star dinner and a four-star hotel. And that's even more true in France. I would say, now that you've asked that question and I've wandered on with the answer, I would say probably France is my favorite place to hike, because the complexity of the landscape of France and the beauty of the landscape, the stunning history of that area, which you feel in your bones. And you can hike 15, 20, 25 miles a day. And at the end of the day, you, like I said about New Zealand, you end up in this magnificent hotel with some astounding meal and wines that need to be given a gold medal, and you walk away for a very small amount of money and having had a wonderful time. Those would be some of my thoughts anyway. um, some hula monkey said you've done so much. What instantly comes to mind as, and then it's cut off. So I presume as the most fun. I think that if you back up and think about the fact that I just had to refresh my computer is going to sleep on me. Uh, if I had to think about the situation, we actually only have one life, and we have 20 years, say, when we're so young that, to a certain extent, other folks, our parents, etc., schools, define what we can do and not do. After that, we're on our own. We soon get in most cases, into being in a family. And then if you have children, you've got children, which immediately become your number one commitment, much more important than yourself. And of course, your spouse also is much more important to you than yourself. So you get tied up in doing what we human beings are engineered to do, which is to take the race to the next generation and take that generation in a way that allows them to function to the highest level they can. Um, but in terms of, so I would say the most important thing in life is creating love and creating a family. And if you don't have a family, consider the whole world as one's family. And that's probably the single most important commitment to my mind that we can make. I Oh, how is climate change impacting endangered species? What a dynamite question. That's Passion for Fiction who's asked that. Climate change is having an absolutely astounding effect on species. It's everything from melting of the polar ice, which may extinct the polar bear, and also substantially reduce the populations of migrating bird species that live up north and that cannot reproduce when the tundra stops freezing. There's just thousands of different things to where the robins go. There's a huge difference in where robins are migrating right now based upon warmer springs and warmer falls. So I think but there's been many climate changes in the last 10,000, 25,000 years. Was it, I forget, in 800 AD, Greenland was called Greenland because it was covered with grass. And that too, I believe in my own way, I believe that was human-induced climate change in that once the Europeans got to developing cities and larger networks, they were burning a lot more wood to keep forests to keep the cities warm, and so that substantially increased the amount of CO2 emitted into the atmosphere, which started climate change. Endangered species, it's funny that endangered species in many ways are being more impacted by humanity's attempt to deal with climate change. And by that, I'll give you an example, which is industrial windmills. Industrial windmills are the supposed mantra for getting rid of greenhouse gases, but in essence, they do not in any way lower greenhouse gases or fossil fuel use because wind is so erratic that you need to have a fossil fuel or other what's called fixed energy producer, energy generator, producing full time to make up all of the fluctuations from the wind that's going into the grid, or you cook the grid, or you have brownouts. So, in more than 30,000 wind turbines worldwide, there's been absolutely no reduction in CO2 or in fossil fuel use. And in fact, the British have found that the more windmills they bring on, the more they have to burn coal. So windmills have a tragic and total effect on bird and bat species. They're going to pretty much extinct. That's not meant to be a verb. Many endangered bird and bat species over the next 20 years. They already may have hit a couple of bat species out of the fact. So the Earth has always had climate change. We're accelerating it substantially by human activity. Uh, the only way that I know that we can back off climate change is to develop rooftop solar on a worldwide basis, because what that does, rooftop solar does not emit any CO2 or other greenhouse gases. It does not require the use of fossil fuels. It takes us back away from what's called centralized generation, electricity generation, to the idea of individualized, if you wish, uh, electricity generation, where most of what you utilize in your own home is produced off your roof. And we're soon at the point where a couple of batteries in the garage, and you don't even need to be connected to the grid anymore. And there's no need of subsidies to do rooftop solar, because right now it's more than functional and efficient, and in addition, you can get leaseback plans that will pay off your solar system in 7 years, and then, like my house, $8 a month just to be connected to the grid. That's all I pay. The rest comes right down through the roof. So climate change is certainly impacting endangered species, but much more important than climate change is population growth. That's what's killing off all of the animals in Africa, for instance. Someone has just said they complain about walking 10 minutes from their parking garage. It's funny that if you look at how the human body is engineered, we're engineered to walk. There's some marvelous books out there there's one called Born to Run, and there's another one, if you just look up anything on barefoot running, for 10 million years, or however many, there's a difference of opinion as to how many years that we have been a biped rather than a tree dwelling quadruped. But we are engineered to walk long distances, and we are engineered to walk long distances barefoot. I don't remember the number of bones and nerves in the foot, but it's almost the most intensive location in the body for bones and nerves, except possibly the hand. We lose an enormous amount of control over our lives when we put on shoes and walk on asphalt or concrete. Um, there's a direct connection with the earth that you can get through the soles of your feet. In addition, there is, if you have back problems, which most modern folks have from too much time in cars and chairs and stuff like that, walking barefoot, connecting the toes to the ground makes an enormous difference in back problems. So I guess what I'm trying to say, in essence, is that walking is our natural state. And it's nothing. It was nothing for the old folks back, our great, 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 great ancestors, as it were, to walk 30, 50 miles a day. When I lived in northern Kenya and when I was getting ready to write The Last Savanna, I knew guys in their 70s and 80s who would decide one day that they wanted to go visit their cousin so and so, and their cousin was 60 miles away across the desert. And they would take off with perhaps a jug or two of water, and that was it. And they would run the whole way. And these were people in their 70s. And that's our natural state. We are meant to run down animals. That's how we became predators, if you wish. So we need to walk. Walking is essential for the soul. What event? This is the question. What event caused me to be interested in the environment? Growing up in the magnificent woods, and knowing and having seen so many beautiful places around the world, many of which are gone now. The human destruction rate of the environment is astounding, and like the elephants, I remember being young in Africa, and the elephants would come through, and the herds would stretch to the horizon, and they would be 15 miles long. And it was it was earth shaking to see. And now, of course, there's just a few elephants left, and they're being gunned down and sold into the ivory markets of China and the United States are the two principal buyers, as well as Thailand and Japan. And everybody's making a big fuss about it, being very careful not to do anything. So there you go. That's what I think about that. Oh, that's a lovely question. Just came in from Charlotte. How did you pick out the book cover? It's so pretty. that book cover is from an area in Molokai. Molokai is one of the five or six large Hawaiian islands, and it's the only one with any real natural beauty left to it untouched. It's pretty much untouched, and it's about 40 miles long, and there's a town in the center which has got a few thousand people, and that's it. That's it. And I live on the far west end, which is pretty much desert. But the cover of the book is taken from the east end. It's called Halaba Valley, and it's a stunningly beautiful valley with multiple waterfalls that fall several thousand feet down into these unbelievably lush rainforest jungles. And a lot of Molokai has never even been, I wish to say, explored in the sense that you can get a somewhat of an idea from the air, but it is so heavily jungle that it's extremely difficult to get through it, and it's unbelievably steep, and people who try to get through it literally fall to their deaths, which keeps them from trying to do it again. And so Halava Valley is at the very east end of Molokai in this unbelievable jungle. And the picture is taken where the river that drains these several waterfalls comes out into the ocean in this beautiful little estuary. And the photographer's name is P.F. Bentley, and I think, twice was the Time Magazine Photographer of the Year. He's been all over the world. He's done war journalism, political journalism. He's a magnificent artist and cameraman. You can go to PF Pics, PF and then PIX, I think is his website if you want to see more of his wonderful, wonderful stuff. But that's Halava Valley in Molokai, and I encourage everyone to go to Molokai who possibly can. It's got the world's tallest sea cliffs on one side and the world's second longest coral reef on the other. As I said, it's practically uninhabited and unbelievably beautiful. My wife and I walked from one gorgeous white sand beach to the next, and there's nothing around but monk seals sleeping on the sand. So come and see Molokai, but take good care of it at the same time. I'm only getting, this is from Amy Farland. What is your reaction to revelations about the activities of is all I'm getting. So I'm not quite sure what the rest of that is. Maybe with this silly computer, I can actually get somewhere. I doubt it, but we'll try. The activities, I'm not sure. Is there any way that on this question that somebody can put in that second line, what is your reaction to revelations about the activities of, might be the National Security Agency? I don't know. Can't believe they would do anything bad. Oh, the NSA, we got it. All right. Oh, it's absolutely hilarious in my view. Um, the reason why is that countries always spy on each other. We just happen to be more efficient. When I say we, I mean the United States, happen to be more efficient at doing it than some of our contemporaries. The Russians, and before the Russians, the Soviets, we spent quadrillions of dollars every year trying to find out what each other was doing, and including spying on people's bedroom activities and what they ate and everything else. And yes, we did pick up cell phone calls of Angela Merkel, the Prime Minister of Deutschland, Germany. And the French just announced last week that they've been listening to everything we do for years. So I think these are a bunch of buffoons, all of them. I think we ought to fire them and make them get a decent job. I don't think anybody. I can see listening to Iran. I can see listening to our enemies. And Iran is unfortunately somewhat in that camp, and certainly people like al-Shabaab in Somalia and all of the nasty folks in Afghanistan, and particularly in Waziristan and Pakistan, uh, need to be listened to. Uh, it's 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 just tantamount to it's. I wonder sometimes if we aren't turning into one brain instead of, I don't know what are the 200 countries, Instead of having 200 countries or 200 compartments in the brain, at a certain point in the evolution of the human brain, we became one relatively, somewhat interrelated brain. And I think the Earth is trying to become, excuse me, an interrelated brain. And that would include everything from the internet, which of course is the neurons of this new brain. Um, so I think it's funny. I think that these people ought to find something better to do with their life than listen to each other. It comes down to the individual. You know, if you were doing that, is that what you want to do with your life? I mean, we only have this one time around the track, and afterwards we could go as an individual. It's very possible we go extinct, and I'm not sure that I would want to spend. I know I wouldn't want to spend my days doing that. Life is an enormous, immense mystery, and we have to focus on what we can get out of that, and not try to listen to the bedroom conversations of our friends and enemies. The enemies, yes, sometimes, but not the friends. Okay, I can click on more to get the rest of the question, but you know what? I don't see more. Where's more? I'm not getting along here, this computer and I. If I, I click on that, I don't get that. Um, so, I don't know if I answered the question, but if bottom right of the question, okay. All right, but I think I nailed that question. Oh, I see now. There it is. Cool, cool. Hey, we got it. Even somebody like me. My wife is a computer scientist, which means that I don't have to understand anything about computers. Okay, head doctor. I love that idea. You set out to travel across the Sahara at age 19. What made you decide to do this? Is this adventure at such a young age what gave you the lifelong travel itch? That's a really good question. I, it's just, it's so hard to tell what makes us up. How I got to travel across the Sahara is I got thrown out of college, and so I was driving a truck, and my father said, you know, why don't you, you've always been interested in France, why don't you save some money and go to France for a semester, and then maybe your college will let you back in again. And so I thought that was a good idea. So I registered at the University of Aix-en-Provence in southern France for a semester and saved up a total of $600 for driving my truck, which got me, was plenty for a semester in those days. And got there and I went to classes a couple of days and then I realized this is silly. I mean, I'm just sitting on a bench listening to somebody talk about literature when I could go out and live instead. So uh, a whole lot of us, Aix-en-Provence is a wonderful town if you're a student. Oh my God, what a blast. And so the bars are open all night. There's plenty of exciting potential love relationships walking down the street. Uh, so anyway, we got in a bar one night, a bunch of us were talking and the idea came up, you know, why don't somebody go across the Sahara? So I took it seriously since I didn't want to go to class. And for $10, you could get across the Mediterranean to Algiers, Port Claus in a boat. And I think I had like $20, and I just started hitchhiking south from Algiers down into the Sahara. At one point, I had a few bucks left, and I wanted to go to Timbuktu. Was finally where I wanted to go. So I decided when there were no drives, nobody was going through because it was the end of the Algerian War, and everybody was shooting everybody. So I just decided to hike, and that's how it came about. But I had travel itch from when I was 4 or 5. I'd go out in the woods behind the house, and I'd be out there and way out in the wilderness, and not even want to come home. It's once you get used to the woods and you're not afraid anymore of being out there alone, it's a marvelous resource. So any wilderness. Now the problem is that there isn't much left. It's pretty much going fast. I don't know if that answers your question, Head Doctor. And Rita wants to know what's left on my bucket list to do. And I don't know. Probably I'd like to go to Mars. That would be fun. And my wife and I, who we met through NASA, and so every once in a while we get thinking about it. She was a potential astronaut at one point and then decided to bail out of it for a number of reasons. But we talk about would we the talk in NASA now is who wants to go one way, and I I don't know, I might do it. And so Mars might be fun. Uh, I recommend for anybody who hasn't seen it, the movie Gravity is just an astounding masterpiece. And it's so true to space travel, the way space travel really is, right down to what the inside of the Russian space station looks like. But in terms of where else, gosh, I haven't been to Bhutan yet. My wife and I think of going next summer. I could spend the rest of my life in France. You can never get enough France. It's. I think it's a little bigger than Texas, but it has more hiking trails than the entire United States combined. Most of these hiking trails are, probably over 2,000 years old. They're back from Roman times. They go from village to village, and it's a hike into the past as well as a hike across what is probably the world's most magnificent, consistently magnificent scenery is France. Uh, I would like to do some climbing in the southern Andes. I haven't done yet. I don't know. There's so many places to go. So many places to go. There's lots of Siberia I haven't seen. And when did I start writing fiction? Um, oh gosh, in high school. I think I saw it as a way to. My basic question is the same question we all ask: is what is life? Um, and what is this mystery and who are we and what is this world and like the philosophical question, is it imaginary and it's produced by our brains, or are we pawns in some celestial video game? um, so I think one of the things I learned early is that if I create fiction, it helps me to understand what is life, because fiction is often truer than fact. And uh, as I think it was Confucius said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And we've all been writers for the 10 million years. Even I think having watched lions, for instance, in Africa, lions are writers. They get, in the end of the day, they get together usually on a little hillock somewhere, a whole pride, and you can hear them talking over their day among each other. And a lot of that is sub-rational. It's just stuff they communicate. But another example is minor birds. Minor birds at the end of the day in India, for instance, they gather in the trees and they chatter and chatter and chatter. And what they're exchanging is data about the day, what everybody learned, where there's good insects to eat, where somebody with a BB gun is causing trouble, et cetera. And so got hit by a car today, and now we got to raise his kids, et cetera. But I think that we humans have perfected the story as a survival tool. The story is a survival tool. It um, it allows us to exchange information beneficial to everyone. Like again, in the case of our cave-dwelling forebears, where the lions were and where the prey was, that were the two big things, and where you could get blueberries and all that kind of stuff. And that's really what fiction is today. And so I've always been interested in it from a very early age. And having been exposed to Hemingway and Dickens and Camus at a very early age, and Edith Wharton, and some of that stuff like that, particularly Hemingway and Camus, makes it impossible not to write fiction, because you're trying to figure things out. And I would encourage every single person in the world to write fiction, because it's a way of finding the real facts. But I started very young, and I won a national short story contest in high school. And after that, what's really funny, in college, I did a creative writing course because I thought it would be easier than actually having to study biology or something. And at the end of the course, I think I got a C or D. And the teacher told me he was going to pass me as long as I could, as long as I promised never to write again. So what do you expect out of that? You know, you write to understand and communicate that to others. Yeah, today, the next question is that today's report that the western black rhino is now extinct. I think the last sighting of the western black rhino was in 2006, and it was first declared extinct in 2011. So this is not really new news, but it's typical of the catastrophe that's happening to Africa. And I would say in 10 years, probably most of the major, well, certainly the elephant's going to be gone in 10 years, and very shortly after, we're going to lose, we're about to lose the cheetahs, we're going to lose the lions very quickly. For all intents and purposes, the tiger is extinct. There's still certain areas in India where they exist. I've spent a lot of time with the snow leopards in Mongolia, and they're not going to exist much longer. The whole world is what we're facing right now is an environmental cataclysm, and it's due to two things. It's due to overpopulation, and the latest environmental cataclysm is largely due to the rise of China. China, there's an ancient tradition in China that prizes ivory for sculptures as a sign of wealth. In other words, if when you walk into a Chinese home, there will be sculptures there made of ivory to show how wealthy the homeowners are and what prestige they have. And in addition, rhino horn, lion bones, things like that are very prized in the Middle East and the Arab countries, the Muslim countries, for guys that haven't yet heard about Viagra. And basically, the cataclysmic extinctions of the 2000 of this century are going to exceed anything that's ever happened on the earth before. And as I said earlier, it's due to overpopulation, also to increased industrializations and to the money that flows back and forth now between countries, so that the United States, which has given up its industrial base entirely and given it to China for free, and borrowed money from China then to keep the lifestyle we no longer could afford because we've thrown away all our industries, which was all done at the behest of the politicians and corporations, of course. Uh, Now all of these Chinese anxious to show their prestige are driving up the price of ivory, so it's more expensive now even than gold. And there is no significant attempt made to stop this. Obama, as typical of him, makes little window dressing gestures. Hillary Clinton and her daughter Chelsea have done some serious things. It waits to see if that works or not. There was another question: to what extent are I currently active politically? I'm active politically, having spent most of my life as a aggressively activist Democrat and environmentalist. I'm active politically now in one thing, and that is, well, actually, several things. The first thing is fighting industrial wind, which, as I talked about earlier, does nothing to lower greenhouse gases or fossil fuel use, and in fact is taking up billions of dollars of taxpayer subsidies that should be spent on solar and other ways that will actually lower greenhouse gases. So we're fighting that on a national basis. We've won a huge victory in Hawaii. Maine is now being invaded by by windmill plans because all the other New England states, the southern New England states, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, their residents don't want windmills there. Of course, windmills ruin everything. They destroy your wildlife. They ruin your property values. They make people sick with low frequency noise and infrasound. They're the most horrible thing imaginable and don't do any good at all. So anyway, so what Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts are doing is they're saying, let's build our windmills in Maine because the people up there are poor and stupid and we get away with it. So they're buying all the politicians in Maine, the big utilities down south, and the wind developers, most of whom are from overseas. Maine Utilities, matter of fact, is owned by the Spaniards. Uh, we are just we're just pinned down by these guys. So the next question is, I'm curious about the art piece on your wall. Well, that is a map of that is a game which my father and mother created called Conquest, which they created after he came back from the Second World War. My father was a Renaissance student, if you wish, and a professor of English literature, and later a university dean. And he was very hung up on history, and he created a marvelous game called Conquest, which was, as I said, medieval. And that's the original map of which it was made. So that's what that art piece is, and it's very cherished in the family, you can imagine. Oh God, someone has asked. Oh, this is Tony Whitmire has asked if you could save one species, which one would it be? Well, what I could say is, if I could save the human soul, that would be what I would say, because the human soul is pretty much a wreck. When you look at the last 100 years, when the number of wars we've had and the exterminations we've had, the hundreds of millions of people we've exterminated ourselves, the tendency, as far as I can see, humans have two overriding passions. One is screwing and the other is killing. And as well, it's fun to have families and you can carry on. But we somehow have to change our hearts so that we can, like I was talking about the environment a few minutes ago, there's absolutely no need for us to devastate what's left of the earth. We can create a magnificent earth without it. We don't need to ruin everything. So what is it in our souls that makes it impossible for us to take that step? What is it that makes it impossible for us to institute population control? I mean, particularly in Africa and the Muslim countries, it's just not on the table. And the Africans complain about poverty, but they continue to produce tons of children. When my wife and I were there, just the time we lived, in one of the towns we lived in when we were there, the population literally was exploding. And yet no one dares to touch these subjects. Everybody says, well, we've got to feed the mouths on the planet. But why are we continuing to add to the mouths? Because what we're in essence doing is we are depriving our future of any hope of reasonable life. And so if I could change one species, it would be the human species because we're going to eventually go extinct too if we keep going the other way. What do I think about fracking? That's a great question. Uh, what we have to do is to lower our frantic drug-induced demand for energy. Uh, Fracking, what we're doing is we're racing around the world, trashing the last outposts of beauty in order to squeeze the last bits of energy out of them. Um, it would be much better to learn to control our own need for energy. There's no reason why every house in the United States shouldn't have solar panels on the roof, and every small business, and every shopping mall, and all the other places you can put solar panels. And at that point, we would lower our electricity demand so much that we wouldn't need new dams, we wouldn't need new nuclear plants, we wouldn't need coal-fired plants. Right now, uh, the amount of coal that's being strip mined in the United States to ship to China is unbelievable. Northern Wyoming is getting strip mined, and the coal is being burned all over the United States as well as overseas. When I was living in a little village in Normandy in France, I remember there was hundreds of barges going up the river, the Seine River, uh, and they were all coming from away, as we say in Maine, from somewhere else. And so I called up the people I knew that ran the national electricity utility, and they said, Mike, you can't say this, but they're all from Wyoming. In other words, the French, which had deep coal mines, couldn't generate enough coal with their deep coal mines, and they're buying Wyoming coal. And now Warren Buffett, who has spent I don't know how much money on publicity so that he gets a positive image in the world. He's planning to strip mine more of Wyoming and take it on his Burlington Northern Railroads somewhere out west so he can ship it to China. So what do I think about fracking? I think the same thing I think about the Keystone Pipeline, the same thing I think about wind turbines, which are totally useless, is that instead of trashing what's left, let's learn to live with reasonable energy demands. There's no reason why we can't have solar panels on our house that charges the car as well. The car's batteries run the house at night, and in the morning the car gets charged up in the first half hour of sunlight, and you got it for the day. There's no need for all this. So I think fracking is a horrible idea. In case I haven't gotten around to saying that yet. Good question, though. Oh my God, somebody has asked me, how long does it take you to write a novel like Saving Paradise? For some damn reason, I don't understand why, it takes like a year to write a book. And at first, you have this wacky series of ideas in your head, and you try to concretize them, you try to put them together. They don't make any sense, and you keep working at it. Like the first 3 months are just misery because you know it's just a piece of crap, and then you keep working on you know where it's going, and then you have another 3 months of misery trying to figure out where the hell it's going, and then you begin to get the twinkling of an idea, and you just go like hell for 6 months, and by the time you're done, it's somewhere, it's close to where you want it to be, and you're so sick and tired of it, you want to take it on the road and shoot it. But yeah, it takes about a year, I would say, on the average. And someone has asked, who has impacted you most in your career? That's a lovely thing. These questions are dynamite, by the way. Um, wow. Certainly Dave Brower was here. I thought I worked very closely with Dave for a long period of time. Uh, Another one was Howard Lowenstein, who was basically one of the major coordinators of the anti-Vietnam War movement in the United States. He's the one who started the Dump Johnson movement. I'm getting back in history here, but he basically single-handedly started the movement that unseated Lyndon Johnson so that he did not run again in 1968. Those two folks taught me that you can do an enormous amount if you're determined enough. Jack Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, both of them, wonderful people, both murdered by the same people that murdered Howard Lowenstein. He was a congressman, and all three of them, as we know, were shot to death, and they were shot to death by a combination of the crooks and fools and rich bastards that run the United States, often working through the Central Intelligence. So those two people, and I would say Albert Camus, because though I never met him, he, his writing is so clear about what our responsibility as human beings, what our responsibility is. I encourage everyone to read as much Camus as you can get your hands on. Lately, another person who's really impacted me is Irene Nemirovsky. She was it, she was a girl growing up in Ukraine in Kiev, a Jewish girl, and then her parents had to leave during the Russian Revolution. She went to Finland, ended up in France, wrote a series of bestsellers in France, marvelous, fine books, and was, excuse me, losing my voice. She was taken to Auschwitz as a Jew and killed. But I encourage everyone out there, look up Irene Nemirovsky. Certainly will, I trust that she will affect everyone as much as she's affected me. And of course, understanding why he taught me how to write. more than anybody else, I would say. I don't know if that that answers it. And my wife. My wife has certainly been a major influence in my life, all for the positive good. I'm very, very fortunate to have been in love for a long, long time. Uh, have any suggestions for further reading or film viewing? Okay, further reading. We just touched on that a little bit. I love medieval French French Indochine and some of the magnificent medieval French writers. They were trying to understand what life was, and that was what the Grail was all about, the search for the Grail. And I mean, at one point, the search for the Grail involved the cup of truth, if you wished. And it basically, it's also the search for the Grail is basically a sex mystery because the the essence of life, the secret of life, of course, is in sexual congress. How do you, when you create a new life, you've gone far beyond anything else that we can do. Um, so I would say medieval French literature. It's better to read it in French because you get much more of a sense of what's going on. Anything that Tolstoy wrote, obviously, anything Hemingway wrote, but you're going to disagree with him part of the time. Again, Camus, uh, Malraux, certainly The Human Condition, Man's Fate, La Condition Humaine, one of the greatest books ever written. I don't read a lot of stuff, modern stuff, because there's so much magnificent ancient stuff. Seneca, just read Seneca, the Roman essayist, if you wish, in terms of learning marvelous stuff about how to live. But I think the best way to read is actually to travel. Go places. If you've never been to Rome, go to Rome, but spend time. Don't just fly through. When Rome, you have to spend 2 weeks just to get your feet on the ground. Go everywhere you're afraid of. That would be that would be my reading message. Oh, here somebody wants to know what my view is on Obamacare. Um, I think it's well intentioned. I have no idea whether they're working on everything. I have a lot of friends who are medical researchers because I'm very interested in what the human body is and the human brain more so. And they're pretty dead set against it. The only thing I'll say about healthcare is that having lived many years in France, where there's public healthcare, that is by far the only sensible way to go. I mean, when you go into a doctor's office in France, you'll notice there's no secretaries, there's no clerks doing insurance forms. You just, he or she, the doctor, fills out one half of the form, you sign the other. You pay a small fee. The rest of it comes out of the government health insurance to which you contribute on a monthly basis. And there's no support staff for doctors, they don't need it. And that most doctors do house calls on a daily basis. It's an astounding different system. Um, and it's the same in Austria. I had the bad luck to be 2 weeks, excuse me, in intensive care in Austria after a bad injury. And the whole bill came to $10,000. And um, I think we need some form of national health insurance, something that can't be abused, something that is not over. Uh, the trouble with Obamacare, if you wish, in order to get it through the Senate, he had to deal with people like Joe Lieberman from Connecticut, who was a pawn for the insurance industry. So there's a lot of junk in there that's pro-insurance. We need one single national system, one single national payer. Obama has pretty much kind of screwed himself over in the last several years. He's ended up being by far the worst environmental president we've ever had. And I have to say, I worked my tail off for him in the first election. So he's headed into a sea of troubles, and I wish him well. Um, what kind of books do I read? I read a lot of uh, I read a lot of science. I read a lot of archaeology and paleontology, a lot of medical research on the human brain, on personality. As I mentioned earlier, I read a lot of medieval literature. I read a lot of old stuff, classics, which you can read time and time again. Um, and I keep going back to, as I said, Irene Nemirovsky is my most recent, I don't want to say discovery because France, everybody knows about her, but she's my most recent passion. Um, and what am I reading right now? I'm reading like 6 books, but I don't read much modern stuff. Uh, it's one of the things about the ancients or about a different time. I just finished a wonderful book by Rita Ford, and one of the things about the more historical books, and I don't mean focused on history, I mean books from the 19th century and earlier, is they teach us a lot about the past that we otherwise might not know. So, and the other thing, I'm really sick and tired of a lot of modern lit that's so focused on the individual. And what sex are you? Are you getting along with your partner? What is what these all these little existential queries that they put into books? I think that's silly. I think what needs to be done that we need to read about the world is coming to a cataclysmic mess and for literature to say, oh, that's not my purview, I'm not going to worry about that, I'm going to keep writing about dysfunctional relationships. uh, Nobody wants to hear that anymore. I think it's time that we focus on the human condition, and we focus on what needs to be done to keep the species alive and to keep some remnant of the earth alive, because we're going to lose the entire earth in the next 20, 30 years. It's all going to look like China, which is one huge slag heap under a cold sky. So we need to we need to broaden what we write about. And passion for fiction is asking my favorite music. Oh, that's easy. AC/DC. Heavy metal. I love heavy metal. Guns N' Roses. I love anything guitar, anything electrical guitar. I play electric guitar, and my wife and I have 3 sons, all of whom are guitarists. And the raunchier, the nastier it is, the better I like it. I just adore AC/DC. Both Bon Scott and the new vocalist, since Bon Scott died of an overdose in the swimming pool. Uh, and oh, the '60s music. I mean, the music that came out of the '60s, the anti-war stuff, the sex-driven stuff. Uh, that's the wildest stuff on the planet, and nobody's touched it yet. And I also am extremely fond of Cooper Aron, fond of 15th and 16th century organ music. I adore Bach. I'm particularly fond of Mozart. In terms of classical, my favorite instrument is the piano, and I love piano sonatas and I love piano concertos very much. I mean, the Chopin's piano concerto is out of this world. Have I ever considered writing a children's book? And so, yes, I have. As a matter of fact, back 15 years ago, my wife realized that in my ragged youth. I never had a stuffed animal or anything like that. So she got me one day, walked by a window in Paris, and saw a little stuffed rabbit. I don't mean a real stuffed rabbit, I mean a pretend rabbit. And so she got me, and I named him Bunrabs, and he's been all over the world. He has been to Antarctica, he's been to the high Himalayas, he is the coolest dude. He's hung out in the Kremlin. And so I was going to, eventually, I just haven't had time yet to start writing a series about Bunraps. And because he's had adventures all over the world, he has his own Maserati, which is pretty good for a stuffed rabbit. So I do have that plan. It's just a question of, I'm writing so many damn books at the same time. I don't know where his story is going to come in. All right, now you just got a very nice message. I just want to say that, and I guess we're running out of time here. It's been wonderful for me. This is just, but the one thing I would like to encourage is that we all write books. That we all, it's a wonderful thing to do, and probably a lot of you folks do it. Uh, is just write every day a little bit. And I here's I just got a thingy that says more. I'm supposed to, and now I have to find the this darn computer. Okay, here they are. I have five winners of of Saving Paradise. And I want to thank all of you as well as everyone else who's been kind enough to sit in. And the only thing I wish we could do is somehow chat in person. But here are the winners: Amy Farland, Rita Acuna, Tony Whitmire, Zevius, and Charlotte. So I thank you all. I thank everyone. If ever I'm in a bookstore and you're there, please come up and say hi. If you are a lucky winner, I'm supposed to tell you, by the way, to email booktrib@booktrib.com. So please do that, and the books will get right out to you by the best team in the universe. Thank you, and Rita, thank you. Thank you, Zevius. Thank you so much. Wow, thanks so much, Rita. Dynamite. Let's meet in a bookstore someday. Vive la bookstore. Long live the bookstore.